The following is an on-location episode of CFO Thought Leader. Hello all, it's Jack bringing you a bonus episode this week, having attended Perform24 in San Diego. Perform24 is the annual customer gathering for the planning software company Planful. Planful, of course, along with our other sponsor partners, allows us to bring you this content at zero cost. So I never hesitate to accept an invitation to attend and meet some of the finance and planning professionals who are tasked with completing budgets and forecasts and sharpening their predictive models. You'll be hearing from two such FP&A executives on this episode, where I interview them along the sidelines of Perform24 as I got to play roaming reporter. But that's not all. As you'll hear, we had the opportunity to interview Planful CEO Grant Halloran, as well as a separate interview with CFO Dan Fletcher. So Planful granted us some outstanding access. And it's perhaps not surprising, AI was top of mind for this reporter, but having interviewed different leaders at different places in time and different technology paradigms, as far as the high-tech community goes, I just want to say Grant Halloran is worthy listening. I doubt strongly you'll disagree with that assessment. I think it's his choice of words. It's a pragmatic mindset. It's focus. It just comes across as responsible leadership. You can be the judge. This on-location episode begins now with Grant Halloran. Hello, we're attending Perform 2024 here in San Diego this week, and we're speaking to Planful CEO Grant Halloran. Grant, thank you for making time for us.
Always a pleasure, Jack. Good to see you.
You know, it's interesting. I've observed at this morning's keynote and during previous events these last 18 months where you've had an opportunity to share some thoughts regarding AI. You, in part, use the opportunity to tamp down some of the AI mania out there. It's as if you're keeping a bucket of cold water nearby to toss on some of the mania. Am I exaggerating, or is this part of what you are hoping to signal these days?
Well, I think it's the challenge is to balance the passion we have for it and excitement that we have for it. We think that the potential is gigantic, not only for financial performance management software, but more generally through all parts of business and society at large. We have to temper that a little bit with some realities. And I think the last time we spoke, we were talking about a lot of legal issues that needed to be resolved, security, still a hot topic. But what we've seen in that time since we last spoke is a very rapid evolution of the sort of baseline technologies or the infrastructure level technologies. Seems like every week something new is coming out, and it seems always novel. So as a software company, you know, we're still grappling with a lot of the novel new things that are coming out. So we see huge potential. But I also do think, just based on my experience in the software industry and the ability for companies to adopt this type of technology, it's probably going to go a little bit slower than people think. And that's okay, because as I said in the keynote, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So we're excited about it, but we also need to make sure that we're delivering valuable things that people actually want and feel like they get value from.
So when it comes to AI, what are the type of questions Planful customers are asking?
I think I would characterize their sentiment as curious right now. I wouldn't say that people are wanting to rush in too quickly. There is a lot of fear around security. For example, with enterprise data, where is that data going to go? How are these language models going to be trained? Is our data, somehow going to end up in some public cloud and in some neural net that we're not aware of? So there's those sorts of concerns, but there's a lot of curiosity. I'd say there's an equal mixture of concern about jobs, not only for knowledge workers inside these organizations, but their kids and what they should be studying at college and all those sorts of things. So it's a real mix. We're also seeing, like all adoption curves, some companies that are getting into it faster. They're wanting to innovate more. They're empowering their organization to try these technologies out. They're starting to bring a little bit more programmatic discipline to that, I think, which is good. And others that really, frankly, are just going to sit around and wait for a while and see what happens. So normal mix, but generally curious. And I think that it's very difficult for a client of ours, for example, to really know what's possible when we're in the middle of Silicon Valley and every week we're learning new things. How on earth can we expect our customers to be able to know what's possible? So we think that's part of our job, is to bring that value, show them how it will work for them. And that's when I think the adoption will really take off.
I just want to repeat a comment you made this morning. You said, we will get it wrong if we don't get you guys telling us what you want. And I thought it was an impactful statement at the time. I think because you seem to be pretty mindful that Planful could take a wrong turn here and maybe be impulsive as far as what it develops for its customers in the realm of AI.
Yeah, I would say that every day at work, we get into these lengthy conversations, and new folks that are coming into our company are bringing new ideas. So there's no shortage of ideas around how the AI technology can be applied for the types of processes and data that we work with. In fact, I would say it's probably a dozen new ideas a week. So part of the issue there is triaging what customers are going to find valuable. And that's what I mean by that. I think that probably most software companies will get it wrong unless they really lean into asking the customers their opinions of this stuff. Now, again, I have to temper that a little bit. If you don't know what's possible, then how can you say what you want, right? So part of our job is to create experiences, create technologies that they can react to, and then we will ask them to vote on what's most valuable. And that I think that's what we need to do to guide our roadmap.
You did mention the creation of an AI Innovation Council. Now, is this just another customer group, or is there something more to this?
Yeah, so what I like about this, like a lot of software companies, we have a customer advisory board. But the way in which we think about that is the types of corporations that we will have involved. So we want a mix of industries, we want a mix of larger and smaller growing companies, so on and so forth. In this example, we're looking at it more from who the individual people are. And so what I am expecting to see out of this, inviting customers to apply to become a member of this co-innovation council for AI specifically, we're going to very quickly see who the early adopters and innovative thinkers are as humans out there in our customer base. So we care more about their passion to be involved and less about what type of company they're from.
There are also some comments made about helping customers better understand where AI will first be able to serve them best. And the topic area that kept surfacing was redesigning processes, or the thought that kept coming forward was redesigning processes. This is where you believe changes are afoot, and can you help us understand better?
Yeah, so I think there's been too much of an obsession so far, at least in the last 12 months, with tasks. So how can the AI eliminate this task or do this task for us? And Sam Altman from OpenAI talks about 5-second tasks and 5-minute tasks and 5-hour tasks. Well, I know that the magic is in how those tasks come together in processes. And processes are obviously a serial chain of tasks, but also involving lots of different people. So there are lots of things that can go wrong. There's lots of dynamics. There's more moving parts in all of that. And I think that that's where AI is going to be quite transformative, because it will learn how those tasks are strung together, and it will be very goal-oriented. It will understand what the corporation is trying to achieve with a process, and it will learn how to best execute that process. And often that will be different to the way in which humans run it today.
When it comes to setting customer expectations, which I think you did some of that this morning as well, what is the primary message that you want to deliver here? Is it, we're listening, we want to understand, or, help us narrow the lens on what matters to you, or what is it?
The overall expectation I'm giving customers right now is that it will be a marathon. This is an endless endeavor. I liken it a little bit when I talk internally at Planful. I liken it to full self-driving with the Tesla. That was first announced many, many years ago, and it's continued to evolve. And now it's at the point where at least Musk believes that this is going to be mass adopted. I've tried it; it works eerily well. But trust me, you still need the human in the loop. So I liken it a lot to that. It's going to be constant iterations. We're on a monthly release cycle, so we expect that once we get our first drop out there, there'll be new capabilities coming out every month. I think the velocity will go up as well, but we have to pace that with the ability for the customer, the humans, to use the technology in a useful way. It's a new experience, and I think that one of the big success factors is going to be how well the AI interacts with the human users, and in a sense, how that relationship gets formed between the two. So a marathon, it's going to go for a long time, lots of iterations, and it's going to be fun, but customers are going to have to learn new ways to do things. They will adapt to using the AI. Once they start to see how it can benefit them, they will start to ask it more things. They'll start to do more things. It will achieve what they want, and they will gain trust with it from that.
Grant Halloran, thank you for making time for us.
Thank you, Jack.
Hi, it's Jack, and we're at Perform24, and we've caught up with Dan Fletcher, CFO of Planful. Dan, thanks for making time for us.
Yeah, thanks for coming to Perform24, Jack. It's always great to catch up with you.
So I did sort of send up a flare to let you know that I would be asking AI-related questions. Big surprise, I suppose. And Dan, we've spent some time in the past talking about growing and scaling companies. And I thought what might be interesting is to learn when it comes to growing and scaling the business, has AI begun to influence your decision-making as it relates to, where you're making those investments to grow and scale the company?
Well, it's an interestingly worded question in the sense that, has it influenced or participated in driving the decision making? And I wouldn't say we're quite there yet. I'm not asking any of the large language models for advice on how to scale my business quite yet. I'm not saying we won't get there, but it is absolutely a massive part of our thinking about where we invest. And I would bifurcate that into two buckets. There's internal use for our own operations and maybe eventually strategy. And then there's, of course, our product, right, which we heard all about in the keynote today.
Let's just change gears a little bit here and jump over to data privacy or data security. When it comes to data security, does finance leadership play an important role? I mean, do you view your role as being significant
when it comes to addressing the challenges of data security?
Oh, absolutely. I think finance is often mandated with protecting the business, right? And so all things privacy, data governance, security. I think finance has a seat at that table, whether they actively manage the IT org or whether they're just a business partner. And so look, I meet very frequently with our privacy team on security and privacy awareness training, and I think, we have a framework in place in industry to address this. SOC 1, SOC 2, SOC 3, and I am consciously monitoring the campaigns. We do twice yearly audits at Planful, and obviously our customer privacy and security is hugely important to us. It's existential for us. And so we're watching how that education is changing. And it's my personal belief that everyone in the company participates in this, in privacy awareness, and so the training is absolutely elemental.
I want to use the phrase data-driven priorities. And we've talked about data for the last few years as well. But I'm curious if, as it relates to today and the types of AI-related conversations you're having with different finance partners across the organization, have your priorities changed? Have your data-driven priorities changed?
Well, I think we all have more reasons to be concerned about our data governance in a world where folks are putting data into Gen AI models to answer questions and enhance their own thinking. And so I do think it has changed my thinking, Jack. I wasn't worried 3 years ago about someone in the company uploading proprietary information into a Google search, right? Just the 10 blue lines. I wasn't concerned about that. But I have to be concerned now that someone will go to ChatGPT-4 and ask a question about their employment agreement, which is proprietary information, right? And so I would say it has given a heightened sense of concern from my perspective.
I want to just look at the CFO role and step outside of the office for a moment with us and peer back in. As we move into this AI era, as many people have characterized it, will the leaders who occupy this office, won't they need to step up? And, what I'm talking about are some of the ethical concerns that are mounting as AI expects to take on a bigger decision-making role across industries. And so as more ethical challenges spring up, won't this summon CFO leadership?
I couldn't agree with you more that finance and CFOs are going to have to step up, or you might say lean in to the questions around AI that we've been discussing in this conversation. I think at the end of the day, money talks, and finance is going to have to be willing to invest in building up the knowledge in the company, executing the training, and frankly, bringing in external thought leadership as well. There are people who study this every day who I think can be helpful to businesses who are very focused on a million priorities to cut through the noise and help us understand where our risk is and how to mitigate it.
I'm wondering what types of experiences from your past do you believe have prepared you to be a CFO in the age of AI? Now, you were an investor, having chatted with you about your professional experience in the past. I thought this was an interesting question, particularly for you, because investors have had a big hand in shaping the AI landscape, and that's the world from which you came. Can you think about that a little bit? How is it that your past experiences perhaps have maybe even given you an advantage here? I don't know. What would you share with us?
Well, it's a great question, Jack. I think a lot of investors, at least my training as an investor, was often focused around thinking about disruption. And when you're planning out an investment, underwriting a potential deal, you have a thesis, and you have to be aware of different ways that there are risks that could be disruptive to that thesis. And so I think about the way I apply that framework to Planful. And we're lucky that Planful sits in a category of software that AI has deemed a winner, right? All the things we do around reporting and analysis and planning are pretty clear use cases for LLMs and Gen AI. And so that's exciting. And I feel like I'm fortunate to be in a business that could be and ought to be a winner. And so then I think about the potential disruptions to the internal team, to our workforce, and that goes right back to the things around data governance and data risk. And so, I'm definitely underwriting a plan that will help manage and account for those risks.
So what do you think of that approach where evaluating a CFO's past to understand, to have it become a determinant of their success in the age of AI?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting framework to understand who these people are, where they came from, what experiences they have, and then what they bring to the CFO seat and how that might be helpful, what gaps they might have. We talk about it a lot in the CFO community, the different paths to CFO, and it's blurred over the years, right? I mean, it used to be Big Four partner, bang, CFO. That's sort of the track. And now you get folks like me who have kind of a diverse background. You get folks from operations, you get bankers. So it's really interesting, and I think it bears researching.
And at the same time, clearly there's no correct path, but we're wondering how leadership emerges at these times. And, for some CFOs, it's going to be obvious that they have to assert themselves perhaps into more discussions, more debate across the company.
I think it's not necessarily a question of where I'm working at this point in my career, but I do think I've evolved. I think finance bears a tremendous sense of responsibility for being able to say no when you have to, for putting up the right risk frameworks. And early on in a financial professional's career, I think they kind of carry a big stick, right, and talk loudly, all at the same time. And I think what I've learned over the years is that I am personally best suited, and I think financial leaders anywhere are best suited by building the trust so that you can operate within that relationship of trust instead of needing to, be a little bit more firm, decisive, closing paths. And so I agree that we have a very collaborative culture, and I think it's just built on mutual trust and respect.
Dan Fletcher, thank you for making time for us.
Thanks, Jack.
Hi, we're here at Perform24, and we've caught up with Mike Petruskis of the Hill Group. The Hill Group today is an ownership group of more than 80 insurance agencies, and Mike oversees budgeting for the Hill Group. Hey, Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Jack.
So, Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you up to?
So I've been with the Hill Group about a year and a half now. We're growing very rapidly. We, as you mentioned, I oversee budgeting and forecasting. We do an annual budget in Planful. We do monthly forecasts in Planful, and I oversee all of that.
Tell us about, let's look out the next 12 months. What are your priorities? What are the things you got to get done?
Well, I think we want to get better at forecasting. We're not particularly good at it right now. We didn't really even have a formal forecasting process in place when I got to Hill a year and a half ago. So we're now doing that in the Planful application. But like I said, we're not particularly good at it yet, so we need to get better at it.
You didn't even have one, so it looks like you know a quantum leap already.
Right.
But what does good look like to you? What when you say we want to do better, what would you like to do?
I'd like to forecast EBITDA probably within plus or minus 5%. We haven't been there. Every time I think we're getting better at it, we have a bad month where we miss the forecast completely. If we get better at forecasting, we can better manage our cash flow and be ready for the dips in cash flow.
At an event like this, have you been able to compare notes with some who have been there, and it took a while. We had to get over the hump, but we got there. Is that?
Yes. I definitely network when I'm here and see what other people are doing, and that's part of the what I like the most about these events.
Yep, and they've been down the EBITDA path along with you.
Yes.
This time, when you're back at Perform24, what's going to be behind you?
Well, like I said, I want to be better at forecasting, better at budgeting too. A lot of our variances are timing variances. It's just a matter of when we're going to get something. So, we need to be better at predicting as much as we can when we're going to get money in and we can record the revenue. So that's kind of my goal. I'd like to start using dynamic planning as part of our annual budgeting process, because we're doing some things kind of manually in a spreadsheet, and then we copy and pasted it back into the structured planning within Planful itself. And whereas if we use dynamic planning, we could just put it right into Excel and upload it from there. So it kind of cuts out a step.
In your organization, do you find yourself sort of educating the executive ranks as to look what we can do now, or this is what this application's capable of?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
And it kind of the light bulb goes off in their head. They can see why it's going to help.
I don't even think they realize everything that it can do. So,
is there a conversation in your organization around AI today?
I wouldn't say we talk about it a lot, but the one place we have kind of looked at it is with the Planful Predict. Like I said, we're not very good at forecasting, but we've been looking at Predict to see if that could help us with our forecasting, and it could highlight some areas that don't look consistent with the historical data. The problem that we have is that our data isn't always consistent over time, because we're always combining agencies together, either physically because they're close to each other, or for accounting purposes for efficiencies. So sometimes we don't move all of the historical data with it. So it's not always consistent. So that's the one problem that we do have.
So I love to illuminate that unique role that you play, and I'm kind of like, are there different parts of the organization that someone like you connects with that other executives don't? Like you're part of finance, but you're also probably involved with the marketing teams. I don't know. Who do you connect with across? How's this? Who do you connect with across your organization? And by that, I'm just looking for departments, whether it's marketing or sales, or who do you connect with across your organization?
So IT, HR, those are probably the big ones. We don't have a lot of marketing spend in our business, but we do IT allocations. So I'm working with them throughout the budget process. Also HR, because we get our HR data out of our payroll system and upload it into Planful at the start of the budget process. So those are the two big groups.
And have you been able to, like with HR, or were they aware? Did they have buy-in with the adoption of the application?
Yes. They get us what we need when we need it. So.
You figured it would be good to involve them.
Yep.
Mike Petraskis, thank you for allowing us to catch up with you.
Okay, thank you, Jack.
We've caught up with James Muscat, a top FP&A executive with 10 Lifestyle Group out of the UK. Hey, James, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, James, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been with 10, probably 6.5 years now, headquartered in the UK. We're a global company, all over. We're in North America, big operations in Latin America, Japan, etc. You know, all the issues that come with being a global company. It's a complex process to look after from an FP&A perspective. Started at 10, no FP&A angle whatsoever, and now we've gone through a huge digital transformation in the last couple of years, just to bring finance to the forefront. Rather than being a support function, but actually be a strategic partner.
I want to look forward with you, but I do want to look back. Can you share any of the early milestones? It sounds like you started from ground zero and took it to one level, then the next.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like to say we used to be an Excel city. That was my phrase. Everything was so manual, Excel driven. It was a nightmare. Just to sort of build out management information decks, you used to have about 5 to 10 different Excels, bringing in different parts of the analysis, different mapping, different FX calculations, and used to get lost. Everything used to break, and then we sort of brought all that into a tool which is Planful. But at the same time, we actually looked at our organizational structures. We looked at other processes within the business, replaced our GL, which is the bread and butter, which feeds our reporting tool, and we also looked at other things like AR, AP, related pieces of tech, just to help make us more efficient.
When you come to an event like this and you compare notes with peers out there from different types of organizations, how do you think you're doing? Do you discover new milestones that you need to pursue, or you think you got some things nailed down that others don't?
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing to see that there's businesses bigger than us that actually don't have things in place which we do. But I think it's really important to actually see what's out there, which is why I'm here, and compare notes, as you say, and be inspired by other people at the same time, and just to see what they're doing.
Speaking of inspiration, what are those priorities going forward over the next 12 months? What do you got to get done? What's
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all of our sort of reporting is pretty good at the moment. Our business partnering capabilities, our forecasting could be better in the way that we collaborate with the business. So we're using Planful and all their new functionalities to really embed other parts of the business into Planful, and just get everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. We like to say one source of truth, more accountability, buy-in, everybody looking at the same stuff.
Was there any troubled spots along the way? And something that you had to overcome, or spent more time than you thought was?
Yeah, I mean, look, my team, they aren't trained FP&A professionals. Neither was I. I came out of PwC. I was there for a couple of years, so you have to learn all this stuff. There's no sort of rule book. You learn as you go along, and there's no right way of managing change in a business. Everybody will react to it differently. And we're not people who implement software. We're finance people, so we do our best and we try and influence and generate that buy-in where we can. But yeah, of course, rolling something out sometimes can feel a bit of a chore to another department. But it's all for the right reasons. They understand that.
Just curious, then, you mentioned PwC in passing. Were you an auditor back then?
Yeah,
your prior life. Yeah,
I was. Yes, and I mean, lots of listed company experience, big clients in the UK, and then sort of moving to 10 was much smaller. It was like joining a big startup.
Yeah.
And as I said, we've really transformed the way that finance operates. But yeah, the skill set of an accountant has seriously changed. I mean, when I was at PwC, there were different teams starting to come into place to look at things like data, or to look at things that were a little bit techy. That wasn't our bread and butter. And I think nowadays everybody's cross-skilled in that sort of stuff. So I was in that kind of like twilight zone where you had to learn. And nowadays I think you have to be quite proficient in data, in the tech that. And
when you joined 10, was knowing that there was a transformation that was going to happen here and you could be part of it, was that part of the attraction, or was that not visible yet?
No, absolutely not. I think what really helped was we had a new CFO come on board who had been part of quite a few big businesses. So he sort of knew what good looked like, but he didn't know what was current. He sort of let us go out. I mean, I really found it useful going to various networking events in the UK and speaking to partners. I mean, look, as much as they're trying to sell you something, there's a reason that they have put these products out in the market and that they're successful. So So yeah, it was really just learning about, what is the tech stack out there which can, help improve the office of the CFO. And it's been a lot of fun. There's no real guidebook to doing it, and it's really paid dividends for us. So
yeah, the missing guidebook for my next question is regarding AI. Are you guys having a rather robust conversation around AI these days, and is it more than a conversation?
Yeah,
We're
really looking at just ways to be more efficient. I think my boss's mantra is automate in any way that we can. But where we're really looking is operational efficiencies as well. 10, we're effectively a call center. We book, dining tickets, travel for high net worth customers of banks. And actually, if you've got an AI co-pilot there helping you come up with suggestions, it might make you, 10, 20% more efficient. We're trying to understand what the reality is here, and of course, that's going to bring efficiencies down to the bottom line, hopefully at some point. But yeah, in finance as well, it's from very basic things like writing papers, or even just looking at alternate perspectives on things.
Well, James Muscat, thank you for answering our questions and allowing us to steal some time from
No problem.
Perform24 from you.
No problem, been a pleasure.